So you all know Live 8, and here's Live 9. So I'm gonna just make some stuff, some music on it. So you'll see some of the new features, you'll see some of the features that we already had. So let's start. Okay, so I've got a pretty simple and clean project here. I've got just an audio file there. As you know, in Ableton, you can just drag in files at any tempo and adapt them to the tempo that you wish. And in this particular case, I've got an example of a simple idea, as for example, someone beatboxing. So say I've got an idea while I'm going to work, and I just want to record a quick idea of a rhythmic pattern. I can do this on my iPhone, for example, then come home, sit down at my live, and just drag it in, and we'll see what I can do now. So here I've got a pretty simple pattern of drums recorded as a beatbox. So, okay, so one of the first interesting new features of Ableton Live is the ability to transform audio to MIDI. So we'll see here quickly how can I do this. Usually, say I use an 808 sound for my drums. So I've got my drum racks here of an 808, and you'll see how easy it is to now transform this audio file with a basic beatboxing into an actual MIDI pattern that I can use with different sounds. So it's as easy as dragging this file to my drum rack. We'll see there is a little window that allows me to say what I want to do. So I've got 3 different options. I'm going to go through these 3 different options during this demo. In this case, it's obviously a drum pattern. So I want to convert this audio to a drum pattern. So I just click on this option. Live does it while playing the audio file, so I don't need to stop on this. And we will see now that if I go on this, now I've got my pattern easily transformed from a basic audio file to an idea that I can now modify in MIDI. So I've got my 808 sound here. So I can just start to modify this pattern. For example, just copy it. And for example, double my kicks, or maybe a new one, maybe getting rid of my ads. And now we can see that I can quickly starting my modifications from a basic audio file to some concrete ideas. So, okay, I've got my drum sound, I've got an 808, but now I want to maybe do some more stuff with it. So first thing I can do is use an EQ, so to get rid of stuff that I don't want and stuff that I want. So this brings me to the new Live browser. So in Live 9, we've implemented a new browser that we can see here. Now our browser is divided in 2 panes. So we did a bit of pre-selection here for you. So we can browse through sound, drums, instrument, etc., etc. So say I want an EQ8, I can just Apple F, type in EQ8, double click, and I get automatically my EQ8 down there. That, as we can all see, has changed quite a bit on the interface. I don't know if everyone can actually see it. But we have now included into the EQ8 as output of the spectrum, a spectrum of the output, sorry. So we can see what's going on in the spectrum, so we can modify the sound accordingly. So not only this, we have actually implemented quite a few changes. So on the background, the EQ8 works differently. So we've implemented some new algorithms for the filters. And now we've got new filters, as for example, on the I-pass, we've got a new, very steep I-pass cue. So we can have really precise control over this filter. But not only on the I-pass and the low-pass, we change the filter on every single band, so that we are now emulating a bit more like analog filters. So we are avoiding aliasing that would happen with digital filters. So now we can do stuff like very nice sweeps without any perceivable distortion. So as well, you can see that I can now open my spectrum analyzer just here, so I can have a really clear view of what's going on. And now I can just use my filter with a much more precise and much more clear sound, okay? So not only the filters and the interface have changed, we've got some new features in. One very interesting feature is the ability to pre-listen only on the band that we are affecting. So I can really like check for a determinate frequency and work on that. So say I want to work on the snare, I can just now take this, and we'll see that now we're hearing only the band that I am actually moving. So I can really see where's the frequency that I want to affect. So for example, here maybe we see that there is a bit of booming on the snare, so I can just listen to it and maybe get rid of it a bit like this. So it's really easy, it's really intuitive, and not only on the background, we've got a really strong algorithm that now allows us to have much better filters and a much better sound, of course. So okay, now I've got my drums, I've got my basic EQ that we will work a bit on later on. What I would like to have next is a bass line, probably. So say I've got a bass home, and I record basic ideas with my bass at home, and I've got my folder on my desktop with my basic bass ideas. I could just simply go into my Finder, find my folder, drag in the bass idea, and use it. But now, in Ableton Live 9, we've got a very nice feature, is the ability to create folders that can stand anywhere in our computer or in external hard drives. So I can define locations for where my samples are, as simple as going to add folder, find the folder that I want to add. So in this case, is my bass idea folder, select it, open it, and now I've just got it here. Just get me rid of this. And now I've got my folder here that will be always accessible in my live projects without any problem. So this is very important because I can now define location in anywhere on my computer, on any hard disk that I've got. So I can have my external hard disk with a lot of samples, just define the location here. And when I plug in my hard disk, I will have access to all of these bass ideas. So okay, let's just drag in this idea. So we can hear it now. So I've got a basic bass idea that I recorded with a bass, and as you probably will guess, what I want to do now is use a more electronic sound. So I want to extract this information to MIDI again. So I can just go on the clip that I want, right click on it, and we will see that the three options that we previously seen are here. So I can convert harmony to new MIDI track, convert melody to new MIDI track, or convert drums to a new MIDI track that I've just done before. In this case, it's just a melody. It's a monophonic bass line. So I can just go here, convert melody to new MIDI track, and we will see that Live will continue to work on the background, no problem. We'll create a new MIDI track with all this information. So we can just stop this. And now I've got this information in MIDI format. So I see that here there is a double note. I just get rid of it. Maybe I want to just lower everything for an octave and get more near to a sound that I want. So we see the MIDI information is very accurate. So I can now just work on this information without any problem. And maybe change the sound again. So say I'm not happy with the sound of this bass and I want to change the bass sound, I can go back to my Live browser and look for a bass sound. So I can just type in bass and find all of my bass sounds. But if I want to be more precise and just look on the sounds available, I can go here and filter it only for the sounds. Interesting thing here is that we can now not only preview clips and audio material in my browser, but I can also preview information in instruments and racks. So I can go here and just preview that particular instrument. So now I don't have to load a rack, see how it sounds, and then maybe change it. I can just go here, sort of listen to what I want, and just drag it in, which is a pretty cool feature. So let's go for something like a Juno bass. We want something more electronic. So I go for a Juno bass and just simply drag it into my bass track. And now I've got a sound that is more what I was looking for. As you see, the workflow, as usual with Live, is very intuitive. I don't need to go through loads of menus and stuff. I can just get my ideas quickly, convert them, find a new sound, just put it in and see how it sounds. So okay, now we've got our basic composition with a drum and a bass. So I want to maybe continue working a bit on the sound. Maybe the drums are still not exactly how I want them, and I want to add some compression to it. So again, Live browser, I just go on, type in glue. We've got a new compressor. The glue compressor is inspired by a classic analog desk compressor. And we can just, again, quickly load it in. And we will see it down there. We've got a nice new compressor here that has a bit of a different feel to the classic Live effects. Looks a bit more analog since it's inspired by an analog one. So we can just start moving the threshold, and as we move the threshold, we will see that we are affecting the result. Obviously, the more we compress, the more we need to make up with the gain. So we can just have a basic compression here. The sound of this compressor is very good. It's very analog-like, it's very warm, and it's very good to glue stuff together, as the name suggests, obviously. So this compressor, as you might probably see down here, is made by our partner Cytomic. Okay, so it's very, very nice sounding one, but there are two features that are very nice. One of them is that we've got a dry-wet control on the compressor, so we can now have you can use Glue compressor for a basic New York compression. I don't know how many of you know New York compression. Raise your hand. Okay, so I'll explain it quickly. Basically, sometimes you don't want to compress a whole sound. Maybe you want to mix in the sound of the original with the compressed sound. So it's a technique of compression that is called New York compression. And this now allows us to do it because we have a dry-wet parameter that allows us to mix in clean sound with compressed sound. So it's just a nice feature that some people use. And another really nice feature is the fact that we can sidechain this compressor. So classic use of sidechaining is just sidechain the bass with the kick, okay? So we will do that simply by selecting the compressor and alt dragging it to my bass, and I copy my compressor exactly with the same parameters. So it's really easy workflow. I can just drag in my instruments or my effects from one track to the other in a very easy way. So let's see how it works for the sidechain compression. We can open our sidechain menu, and it's as easy as choosing from an audio input. So in this case, we want to get it from the 808 drum rack, and specifically from my kick. So let me find it here. If I can find it, okay. So I can choose my input from different parts. So it can be pre-effects, pre-mixer, etc., etc. I'll just use the kick here, and now I can just sidechain my bass with my kick. So every time the kick gets in, we get a compression. So it's good to keep the frequency balanced, since bass and bass drum probably they will clash at some point in a frequency. We can avoid an overload of sound on a certain band of frequency. So it's a very widely used technique. Okay, so now we've seen already some new features, some new stuff that we've got, some new effects that we've got on live. We'll go through some more later on. So say we are happy with the overall sound of this. We've got our drums compressed and EQ'd. We've got our bass with this sidechain. So we've got a sort of good bass to start with. So now what we will probably want to use is maybe some chords, okay? So say I've sampled some stuff. I've got my folder defined. So as you can see here, I've already defined it previously. I've got a sample folder where I sample different stuff, okay? And say I want to use some chords that I've sampled, but I want to change a bit the sound. So I've sampled here some nice jazz stuff from Chet Baker. So I can just drag it in here and we can have a listen to it. So, okay, we've got our chords here. It's not exactly what I want. It's not exactly in the key I want. So I want to do something with it. I like the idea, but not as it is. So you probably guessed it again. We're going to transform this information into MIDI. And again, it's very simple. We can just go here and we'll use our last option, which is convert harmony to MIDI. So converting harmony means that we can now convert chords and polyphonic material. So again, just transform it here. And we will see that we've got a new track open here. And just stop all clips and compare the material. So pretty nice. And we will see the conversion. So it's pretty accurate, pretty good. And again, a very quick workflow. Just right click, convert harmony to MIDI, and we've got our information here. So let's check what's going on here. We've got our MIDI material here. We've got piano chords played by Chet Baker that we are now gonna transform to adapt them to what I'm looking for. So for the project, I want something specific. Okay, so let's take this chord, copy it, create a new MIDI clip. Just go here, copy it here. We're gonna maybe adapt it a bit there. Just fold here. So we can have something like this. Just copy it here. And now just duplicate this material. Okay, so let's here again with drums, bass, and now let's add in the chords and see what happens. So we're getting this typical like reggae dub stab. It's still not the key I want to play it in, so I can just do some modifications here. I'll select all of my chords, unfold it, and try something like this. I'm still not happy with the sound. So what I can do now is something really cool. Just fold it again, select only 3 of my chords, unfold them, and we'll see that here I've got a very nice little option that we didn't have in Live 8, which is inverting the chords. I've got a chord and I want to invert it so that it sounds a bit different. So let's see how it does. So we've got something that sounds more like what I want, which is cool. I've got my chords here. So let's see what I can do. I can maybe add a bit of delay. And now I want to change the sound. So I don't like this piano sound. I just want to change a bit the sound. So again, I can go here, find a nice sound that fits in with my composition, maybe a Wurlitzer sound, which I like. Just again, drag it in. So I've got something more like what I want, but it's still, the sound is not perfect, so maybe I want to do some modification, something like typical of the Wurlitzer, so maybe panning it around, so that I've got a more of a moving stereo sound. So I can go here and look for an LFO. Just type in LFO, and we will see that here I've got an LFO made with Max for Live. And this brings me to one of the new features as well of like Suite 9, which includes now Max for Live as in the package. So you buy Suite 9 and you'll get Max for Live directly in, which is pretty cool because now we've got even more integration with the Max devices, which means that now a Max device just works as any live device. But obviously we've got the advantage that with Max for Live, we can open the device and modify it to our taste. So just drag in this LFO, we'll see that Max for Live appears, and hopefully it will open. Okay, so we've got our nice Max for Live device here, and we can see that the integration is really well done, because now, for example, I want to just modify the panning of this Wurlitzer sound. I can just go on this little button, map, and just click on the parameter that I want to modify, and it will automatically map it to that particular parameter, which is pretty cool because I didn't have to go to tedious menus and stuff like this. I just click the map button, select the parameter that I want to modify, and just as quickly as it is, just map it to that. So, okay, maybe it's a bit too rough, so we can maybe modify the depth of it and just the rate of it, and do something more like this. So we can easily do this, and we can really see the integration with Max. So let's say I want to give it even more movement, and I want to now modify even more the panning of it. So instead of having a standard rate on my LFO, maybe I want this rate to vary with time. So this brings me to another really cool feature of Live 9, which a lot of people have asked for a long time, and is the ability to record automation into clips. Okay? So I can now record automation into clip simply by activating that little button there. And now I can just move this parameter, and we'll see that now that particular parameter has an automatization on. And if I go on my envelopes, we can see that I've got my curve recorded directly into this clip. So I can now have different clips with different automation and vary much more the content of my song. So let's say this is not exactly the curve that I wanted, and I want to modify it even a bit more. I can now obviously select the points, erase them, and now simply by using a modifier, which is Alt, I can have curves on my automation. So I can have convex and concave curves that I can simply have by clicking my Alt button and just creating and modifying my curve. So as easy as pushing a button, moving the curve, I can have a convex or concave curve. So, okay, we're sort of getting more to what we want, and we can continue to modify this material, and maybe we can do this with the drums again. So maybe I'll copy this little clip here. Again, I will activate my automation recording here, And now maybe I'll want to use and you can see that now I can not only record parameters from my drum racks or from my effects, but I can even automate parameters on my mixer, like a send, for example. So I can have different clips with the same sort of MIDI material, but now modified so that I can change its content. So I can have one with delay, one without delay, one with a lower volume, one with a higher volume, plus all the parameters that I can obviously automate in the drum rack or in the instrument rack or in the effect. So it's a pretty cool feature. And it gives us quite a lot of controls on my automation curve because I can now have curves on it. Okay, so we've got sort of a more classic composition here, and maybe I want to add some snare on the drums as well, some reverb on the drums. So let's activate this button again, go on my send day. Oh, it's not the right one, sorry. So I can add a bit of reverb automation there, but it's not exactly the reverb I want. So if I go here, we'll see that we've got a classic reverb of live here, but maybe we want something a bit different, okay? So I get rid of this reverb, I get back on my browser, and again, talking about the Max for Live integration with Live, we'll see that we have now added a really cool device, which is the convolution reverb. So how many of you know what a convolution reverb is? Okay, so I'll explain it quickly. Basically, a convolution reverb is a reverb that allows us to simulate real spaces by doing what we call a convolution, which is basically a modulation between an impulse response and the sound we're sending in. An impulse response is a response of a real space. So we could record an impulse response of this room, for instance, and emulate the reverb in this room. Not only, the cool thing about it is that it can become a quite cool sound design device, because we can actually convolute not only with impulse responses from spaces, but we can just convolute a sound with another sound. So do sound design stuff. So I maybe can convolute a snare with a bell and see what happens and just experiment with that. So if we go on our convolution reverb here, we can see that we can choose from a menu some different places. So it can be real places, ambience, small rooms, etc., etc. So maybe we want something like a church reverb here. I just go here and select my St. Andrew's Church reverb. And we will see that down here we can visualize the waveform of my impulse response. Otherwise, if I just wanted to use a sound here, I could just take a sound from here and drag it into my convolution reverb, and I will have that sound as an impulse response. So we've got something, a reverb that is a bit bigger, so a bit more like what I was looking for. And now we're starting to have a complete structure of the song. So maybe now I want to start recording my arrangement and just try to give it a more solid structure. So as usual with Live, we can just stop everything here and start from scratch. So maybe I can start just with a drum, so I can record. And as usual with Live, we can see here, just by clicking the tab, we can go back and forth from the session view to the arrangement view. So just add some bass here. Do some modification here with the drums, for example. Okay, so say we've got a basic structure here. I can stop it, go into my tab, and we will see that now I've got my information recorded here, including the automation that I add on my clips. And we will see that now these parts are grayed out. And again, it's a new feature of Live 9. Now we can actually play some of the tracks from the arrangement, and some of the other parts, play them directly from the session view. So the zones that are grayed out means that we are actually playing from the session view. So if I play now, it's going to continue to play, even though there's nothing here, obviously. But I can just click on these buttons, so I activate those parts in the arrangement view. So this track is going to now play only in the arrangement view. So it's a pretty cool feature because I can now compare my parts and just see how they sound, and I can activate some of them, have some on the arrangement, some on the session view. So it's a pretty cool new feature. So just activate all of them and see what I've just recorded. So I've got all of my information here with my automation curves, and I've got a basic musical idea, okay? So say some people, they prefer to start their musical idea, like maybe in the studio producing their own music, and instead of starting in the session view, they'd rather start on the arrangement view and give a structure to their song. But say this musician, at some point they decide that they want to use this material in a live context, and that they now want to use this information into the session view so that they can go live and use it there. Now in the arrangement view here, you can select a determinate time zone with determinate tracks, and you can right click on it and sorry, I don't know where it's gone. There should be an option here. Okay, so we've got now an option to consolidate time to new scene. So we can now go back and forth from the session view to the arrangement view and just select some parts in the arrangement view that I just produced in my studio using a regular linear production way. And I want to use as determinate parts, so for instance, the introduction, the verse, the breakdown, etc., and just translate it to the session view so I can use it in a live situation. Now I can do this as quickly as going to consolidate time to new scene, and now I will have a new scene here with all the material translated exactly as it was in the arrangement view. So it's a pretty cool feature because I can now really go back and forward and really have more integration between the arrangement and the session view. If you use this feature, plus you know that now you can have automation curves from clips to the arrangement and from the arrangement to the clips, it's quite cool. Plus, we can gray out zones that we can continue play on the session view while comparing with material that we've got in the arrangement view. Now this integration is really great because we can now switch between one part and the other in a very easy way. So I think like of new features, that's about it. There's more effects that we've got. There's more like Max for Live instruments. We're not going to go through all of them, but there are some really cool features. Like for example, I'm going to show you maybe get rid of this compressor and use our classic compressor. We've seen that we've changed our compressor interface. If we now go here, now we've got different visualization of the compressor, which is really cool. And we've got this visualization here. Again, I'm sorry because it's down there, but if I now change the threshold, we can see where the sound stands. So we've got an image of the sound and an image of the threshold, so we can really see where the compression levels are going on. So now it's really easy to listen to the material, know what's going on, but as well we've got a visual output. So it's even easier to now understand what's going on in the compression level. So we can see the old curves and the old compression stuff directly in here, which is a pretty cool feature. So it's a bit of a different way to visualize a compression, which is much more clearer now what is going on. I lower the threshold, I get into the peaks, and those peaks will be compressed. So now it's more easily understandable, all of this. So this is another quite cool feature that we've added on some of the devices. So as you can see, there's quite a few new features that are important here. We are still making the workflow much easier. So we can really get ideas quickly down, record them down. Now with this new convert audio to MIDI stuff, we've got really a great start from our ideas. You know, we can just record on our iPhone whatever in the street and just bring it into live, convert the audio to MIDI, and just quickly have this information out. So I think there's some great little stuff, and I mean the sound is better now because of, like, for example, the EQ8 and stuff like this that have better algorithms, so better filters, etc., etc. So I think more or less I've gone through the basic features. There's a lot more to be discovered here. As Sammy was saying, it's only a beta, so probably some of this stuff is going to change. It will probably be will. Thank you.